Explanation of the evidence at the Pentagon on 9/11, created by Wayne Coste, narrated by David Chandler. Here's the table of contents, and here's the table of contents for chapters 9 to 17. Chapter 17, Citizen Investigation Team Interviews. A small group of researchers who called themselves Citizen Investigation Team, or CIT, interviewed witnesses to a plane at the Pentagon. They claimed to have proved a large plane didn't do the damage. They claimed that the actual angle of approach, approximately perpendicular to the Pentagon wall, could not have produced the internal damage path, therefore explosives must have been used to create the damage. The official story of a large plane impact was therefore bogus. Later, CIT morphed their hypothesis into a flyover, meaning there was a plane but no impact at all. This is an amazing claim because many of CIT's own witnesses testify unambiguously to plane impact. These include the testimonies of William Lagasse, Chadwick Brooks, and George Aman. Roosevelt Roberts is their only claimed witness to a flyover, but a plane would have been miles away if it were moving with any significant speed before Roberts could have gotten to the loading dock where he says he saw it. He is the only one to claim a plane flying around South Parking. CIT released their findings and interviews in polished, edited videos. The context and completeness of the interview videos has been questioned. CIT has not provided unedited video footage for inspection, even though requests for complete footage have been made over the years. There is no FOIA process compelling CIT to release their videos. By comparison, the U.S. government has been more transparent than CIT. Let's look at some of the individual interviews. Here's George Aman. George Aman was in an ideal location for watching the Pentagon attack. He was safe from imminent personal danger. He had a clear, unobstructed view across the parking lots. He saw the plane approach. He saw the plane impact the light poles, and he described the plane impacting the Pentagon. The Center for Military History interviewed him close to the time of the events. This provided a content-rich basis for CIT's documentary efforts. But CIT focused on one small piece of his testimony. The final CIT interview had no questions about the light pole impacts, the plane impacting the Pentagon wall, or the sounds of the event. CIT seems satisfied with Aman's ambiguous statement that he saw the plane over the parking lot. Here is part of George Aman's Center for Military History interview. So I was just looking out here, and I see this plane coming down here. And I thought it was going to hit the building. So then I'm seeing it. It's going by here, and it sounds like he really stepped on the gas and just really poured the coals to it. And I go from here over to this one here, and I'm looking out, and as you can see right over there where it's at, about 800 feet. And I'm just watching, and I'm just amazed at it. It happened pretty quick, too. And it hit the thing, and it was just the most god-awful loudest noise. I mean, you could hear it like in 3D. You could hear it, bam, and then you could hear it crumbling, crushing like an accordion, and then boom, just like a smash, crunch, pow, when all the fuel blew up. That's George Aman's original statement. Continuing with the same interview. Interviewer, when you first saw it from here to there, how long did it take? George Aman, from here to over there, matter of seconds. When I seen he was kind of turning and gliding, he come across here, across the parking lot. But when he got right in front of here, it sounded like he poured the coals on it. Yes, that's when I looked over here, and then when I looked over here. And I see things fly up in there, not knowing really what the hell they were, but coming to find out they were streetlights. So the plane was clipping the tops of the streetlights off. CIT never got around to asking him about those statements. Lloyd England. CIT tries to discredit Lloyd England's testimony based on his supposed claim that a 24-foot pole went through his windshield. But it's important to note that Lloyd England never says a 24-foot pole went through his windshield. In 2 CIT videos, Lloyd is never asked to show with his hand or other gesture how far the pole stuck out of his windshield. Half a dozen times that should have been the next question, but then they cut to something else. If the question was in fact asked and answered, that was not included in the released video. Lloyd never points to the 24-foot pole and says, "That's the one." It is in fact Craig Ranke who says it, putting words in his mouth and looking for confirmation, which never came. Poor investigation techniques would be the most generous interpretation. In CIT's Eye of the Storm video, we have this interchange. Craig says, "The pictures are taken right after each other, at the same time. It shows the pole. The most important point is that here is your cab, right?" Lloyd, "That's not," pointing to the white car in front. Craig, "See, your cab. See the grill? See you right here? You're wearing the cap." Lloyd, "Yeah, I see it. Craig, "Now here's the pole. That's your pole. See the bend?" Lloyd, "Yeah." Craig, "That's the pole you pulled out, right?" Lloyd, silence. Craig, "That's your cab. It can't be any other pole. The lamp is down next to it."
See what the hole is?
Yeah.
That is the picture.
No, yeah, but these pictures are taken right after each other at the same time. That shows the pole. The most important point is that here's your cab, right?
That's not.
See your cab? See it? There's the grill. You see you right here. You're wearing the cap.
Yeah, I see it.
All right. Now there's the pole. That's your pole. See the bend?
Yeah.
That's the pole you pulled out, right? There's your cab. I mean, it couldn't be any other pole. The lamp is down next to it.
That's as close as anyone gets to hearing Lloyd say what pole it was. Silence. You might say stunned silence, in response to Craig Ranke telling him what pole it was. By contrast, here is the picture Lloyd England himself drew of the taxi with the pole. It's impaled on the rear passenger seat, which is accurate. The pole is sticking out about the length of the hood, and it has a little knob on the front, which is consistent with the attachment point from this lower support arm to the upper support arm. The lower picture is what it would have been like if the pole were the one insisted on by Craig Ranke. Wayne puts out this challenge to CIT. If there is another place in the CIT video series where Lloyd England clearly describes the 24-foot pole as the one that went through his windshield, this section of this presentation will be corrected. However, Lloyd England does tell us it's the shorter segment by his drawing, and the physical evidence is consistent with the smaller piece because of the small size of the tear in the rear seat of the taxi. In our estimation, this is clearly an example of CIT putting words into Lloyd's mouth. CIT is taking Lloyd's silence as consent. This is not valid testimony. It's leading the witness of the worst kind. Chadwick Brooks. Chadwick Brooks was a witness to the plane impact at the Pentagon. He gave interviews to the Library of Congress collection, CIT, and perhaps others. The Library of Congress and CIT descriptions are contradictory on major points. In his Library of Congress interview, he says the plane impacted the Pentagon. The plane flew over him. It hit light poles, knocked down like toothpicks, and it flew close enough that he could have hit the plane with a rock.
A few seconds after that, I literally seen the plane just go nosedive into the Pentagon. Very awful sight because at the very end, the plane literally just full throttle. And to this day, I don't know if I was able to watch it or not, but just to be frozen in time like that, to see that plane just literally clip the lamp hole. I guess just knowing that there were people on the plane at the time and just literally flying over me, what were they thinking? I know they had to see us, and just to literally go into the building like that, literally full speed. It was enough speed just to knock a lamp hole like it was just a toothpick, and just the sheer impact. To be frozen in time like that, to see that plane just literally clip the lamp hole. The closest that people were asking me how close it felt, almost if I had a rock, I felt like I could have hit it.
Were you able to literally actually see the plane impact the building?
Correct. From this location, where I'm standing now, directly turning around and watching that plane literally go into the Pentagon, which is currently located over there.
Right.
Directly.
Okay, and did you see it hit any light poles?
No, we didn't see it hit any light poles.
Okay.
But of course, the trees and everything else was everything was kind of blowing back and forth here. I guess because of the altitude of the plane and the velocity of the plane. Everything seemed to kind of be blowing.
So he contradicts his Library of Congress interview. In both, he observes a plane impact the Pentagon, but in the CIT version, no plane flew over him and no light poles were hit. Also in the CIT version, the plane was described as nearly 2 football fields away. Note that the plane at that distance would create minimal wind, if any. There were no noticeable winds around the Pentagon on 9/11, so his comment about trees moving and wind blowing are actually supportive of his original Library of Congress testimony in which the plane was passing overhead. Sergeant William Lagasse. Lagasse was a police officer with the Pentagon Police. He was a witness to the plane impact at the Pentagon. He was refueling his car at the Citgo gas station. The Citgo security camera video shows him standing at the northwesternmost gas pump, on the station side of the gas pump. Seconds after the shadow is captured on the south side, Lagasse gets into his police car, leaves by backing up, and is gone within 20 seconds of the shadow passing by. The timing is confirming evidence of the shadow being the actual plane passing by. In his Library of Congress interview, he says, "On September 11th, the morning of the terrorist attack, I was refueling my police cruiser at the Barracks K gas station, approximately 1/8 of a mile from the heliport side of the Pentagon. While I was refueling my tank, I was standing outside the vehicle. It was a really nice day. It was a beautiful blue sky."
On September 11th, the morning of the terrorist attack, I was refueling my police cruiser at the Barracks K gas station, approximately 1/8 of a mile from the heliport side of the Pentagon. While I was refilling my tank, I was standing outside the vehicle. It was a really nice day. It was beautiful blue sky. American Airlines 757 flew approximately 100 feet above the ground level, maybe 60 feet in front of me. And that was probably, I'm trying to think here, give some estimate of speed. Was, at the time, I thought was probably 400 miles an hour, which was about right. The wind blast from the wing vortices knocked me into my vehicle. First thing I did was call our communications, and I merely stated an aircraft has just flown on the side of the building.
So just before the shadow appears, what we see is Sergeant Lagasse's vehicle in the large video frame on the right-hand side, and on the smaller frame on the left, Wayne has circled where the shadow would appear. Now we see the shadow captured in the video, and Sergeant Lagasse is still there. The shadow would have passed about 150 feet away. Lagasse's estimate was 60 feet. So here we are about to see the sequence of events. The shadow will flash in the left video frame about a second after the start of the video, and then we will see Sergeant Lagasse leaving. There's the shadow. There is Sergeant Lagasse leaving. Sergeant Lagasse has had a fair amount of correspondence with others over the years. Here is correspondence from Lagasse to Dick Eastman in 2003, in which he says, "The aircraft passed almost directly over the Naval Annex, splitting the distance between the Arlington National Cemetery and the Columbia Pike, and was approximately 100 to 150 feet above the ground when it passed over the annex and continued on a shallow, fast descent, and literally hit the building where it met the ground. There was no steep bank, but a shallow bank with a left rudder turn." Here's Sergeant Lagasse's field of view from where he was standing in the Citgo station looking south. He would have been able to see the plane as it passed the Naval Annex, and then his view would be obscured until it descended and approached the Pentagon. Lagasse strongly suggests he is actually looking south. He says, basically, I was here refueling my vehicle, had my driver's side door open, and he walks to the open driver's side door. Well, I was actually standing here. I was standing by my door, had a lock on the fuel, just let it go. Had a working dog in the back. And I was talking to my working dog, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw something and turned to look at it. Observation. If he's talking with his working dog, he's facing south with his back to Arlington Cemetery. As you will see, this contradicts what he will say later. In the CIT video, what he says is inconsistent with him looking south. Here's a reenactment with him standing between the pump and his car, as he would if he were talking with his dog in the car. What he describes in the next clip would be behind him. Here is what he says in the CIT video. Lagasse. The wingtip was probably between about where the fence was at the boundary. Craig. Where? What fence? See the stone fence with the metal fence above it? It was probably as close this way as the plane got to me. Craig. Let's see what fence you're talking about. Lagasse. That would have been about the center line of the fuselage, right where that fence is. Craig. That's where the center line of the fuselage was? Lagasse. I would also say it was on that angle. Drawing a line on the fuselage would have been there. I don't know where that would have put the wingtip. But the first thing I did was I kind of flinched and ducked into my car. At the time I don't know if it was a reaction of fear or what. I ended up in my car because I called it in on my radio before I even left here. Not even seconds elapsed and I called it in on the radio.
The wingtip was probably about, I want to say where that fence is, the boundary.
Where what fence is?
See the stone fence?
Oh,
metal fence above it. That's probably as close this way as the plane got to me.
Okay, let's see what fence he's talking about. He's talking about this fence way over here.
Yeah, that would have been about the center line of the fuselage, right where that fence is.
Lagasse's location at the northwest gas pump would block his view to the west. The pump itself was tall and he would only be able to look over the top. Looking north, he would only be able to see between the pumps. This diagram has it on the left, highlighted in purple. It's about 350 feet to the Arlington National Cemetery stone wall.
How sure are you that the plane was to the north, coming from the north side of the Navy Annex? You're saying it was pretty much between the Navy Annex and Arlington Cemetery? How certain are you of that?
100%. Bet my life on it.
Craig says, how sure are you that the plane was on the north side of the Navy Annex? You said it was between the Navy Annex and Arlington Cemetery. How certain are you of that? Lagasse says, 100%. I'd bet my life on it. So here we have conflicting statements. The elevated gas pumps would restrict his view. He had to have been facing south toward the Citgo store to have written to Dick Eastman that it passed almost directly over the Naval Annex, splitting the distance between the Arlington National Cemetery and Columbia Pike. But he would have had to have been facing away from the Citgo store to have reported, see the stone fence with the metal fence above it. So we have to ask, which account is supportable? He's already displaying inconsistency, so his self-estimate of 100% certainty can't be taken as evidence. In the Washington Post on October 25, 2001, he says he was at a gas station near the Pentagon filling up his patrol car when he noticed a jet fly in low. Initially, he thought the plane was about to drop on top of him. It was that close. That doesn't sound like a plane 350 feet away traveling along the cemetery wall. Robert Tercio. Robert Tercio is another CIT witness interviewed about the same time as Lagasse and Brooks. Robert Tercio unambiguously contradicts the location given by Lagasse to CIT, supports Lagasse's south-facing observations, supports Lagasse's statement to Dick Eastman, and supports Lagasse's Washington Post quote. Here's the location of the plane as pointed to by Tercio. He was standing near the north corner of the station and pointing to the flight path above the canopy of the station.
Here we are on the north side of the Citgo station, the Navy Annex station, or whatever it's called. What's it called?
Navy Exchange.
Navy Exchange, right. Okay. And So now, you pretty much, this is exactly where you saw the plane fly by, right?
Yes.
Can you point for me how you saw it come?
Well, I would say it seemed to be just over the canopy here, just over the corner of this canopy.
So what we have here is Robert Tercio pointing in the opposite direction from Lagasse pointing toward the stone wall. Was Lagasse playing games with CIT? Lagasse's interactions with Dick Eastman shows that he was aware of the Pentagon controversy. He had contempt for people disbelieving a large plane impacted the Pentagon. So, was Lagasse playing games with CIT, or is this just a case of badly reconstructed memories? In June 2003, he wrote, "Dear Sir, rest assured it was a Boeing 757 that flew into the building that day. The fact that you are insinuating that this was staged and a fraud is unbelievable. You ask where the debris is. Well, it was in the building. I saw it everywhere. I swear to God, you people piss me off to no end. There usually isn't huge amounts of debris left. How much did you see from the World Trade Center? Are those fake aircraft flying into the building? I know this will make no difference." In the last segment, we will look at conclusions and peer review comments, as this presentation is submitted to the 9/11 Consensus Panel.